Chapter 4, Pariah. It looks like you're okay, Naruto, Yamato replied to the blonde Jinchuriki. As a matter of fact, it doesn't change anything at all. It's safe. Naruto lowered his mesh and orange-clad jacket, feeling a little happy that it was real. He actually owned a true Rinnegan and he never knew it. Hey, Captain Yamato? Yes, Naruto? The wood user asked, amused. Do you know anything else about the Rinnegan? He questioned to the Jonin. Yamato put his index finger to his chin, as if deep in thought, then let out a sigh. I don't really know much else about it. We've never actually had one to study, so we don't really know anything. Sorry. Oh, Naruto sighed as he hopped to his feet from the medical table, then a thought struck him. Wait a sec. I think I know someone who knows a thing or two about it. Thanks Kakashi-sensei and Captain Yamato, but I have to run. He replied with a wave of his hand and dashed for the door. Naruto, Kakashi resounded in his mind, he just keeps getting stronger. Just like you wanted, eh, sensei? His thoughts reminisced on the yondaime as he watched Naruto's final moments in the room. Some time later, Naruto jogged through the streets at a steady pace. It was a sunny day and people were still building away at the village. Since there was nothing left but the Hokage monument, they literally had to build a city from nothing. It didn't seem as much of a trouble to the villagers, for at least they were doing something to occupy their time. Naruto still received smiles from others as he passed by them. There would even be one or two girls around the same age as him that he would pass who, when he faced them, would turn their heads away and giggle. Since he never really saw what it felt like to be liked by another girl, it sort of creeped him out, because he thought maybe they were planning something or making fun of him. Ignoring whoever and whatever, he continued. He was trying to reach the Hokage building because he wanted to see if Konan made it out fine. He wrapped around a newly built building and passed a few more people until he started hearing angry shouting and cursing. A few people seemed to be enraged about something as he gained ever nearer to the noise. It wasn't until he turned a corner that he saw a crowd of people arranged into an uneven circle. There seemed to be a fight that broke out and people were encouraging it by keeping it contained in the irregular shape. After listening on the fight for another second or two, he could make out a few phrases the people were saying. Kill the bitch. Why is she here? She stole a Leaf Ninja's clothes. Probably trying to sneak in. Go back to where you came from, demon. Naruto got a little worried for this person. Did they really hate whoever this much? She couldn't have done something too bad. After those thoughts ran through his mind, a small break formed in the massive confusion that enveloped this character in just enough time so he could see who they were fighting. It wasn't a fight. No, it was far from it. This was attempted manslaughter. There were several people on this one person, and there were even others trying to get their hits on the poor figure. Who were they thrashing on? It was someone who Naruto promised to protect. The person they were beating down was none other than the blue-haired ninja that he saved a few days ago. Konan. Anger boiled in the pit of his stomach as he saw the woman lying on her back getting hit in the face with a villager's fist, and 3 or 4 others kicking her in her sides. It was a horrid sight to the blonde boy as feelings came back that he hadn't felt in a long while. Without really thinking, the Jinchuriki blazed through all of the people and threw a right-handed cross to the one attacking her face. This, in turn, sent the abuser flying several feet away from the circle and everyone else to stop what they were doing. Konan weakly looked up to the boy and saw the anger in his eyes, almost as identical as the last time. Naruto. Does anybody else want to hit her? The blonde nin asked to anyone and everyone. All of the villagers stepped back a little at the sight of the Jinchuriki before they barraged him with an array of angry shouts. Why are you defending her? She's an Akatsuki. She doesn't belong here. She needs to be dead. Just like me, right? Naruto screamed as his head turned to one of the villagers, revealing his red vertically slit eyes. Shouldn't I be dead too? I am the Jinchuriki. The villagers stepped a few more paces back before the villager began to speak. Well, you don't want to harm us, and we realize that, but that woman was in on the whole entire destruction of the village. But, people can change, right? An unknown voice said, that came from behind Naruto and surprised everyone. To Naruto's relief, the village's ruler appeared behind the boy, causing the whole scene to emit peace. Granny? Naruto started but was cut off by the goddamn. Don't worry, Naruto. I'll take it from here, she replied firmly. The villagers once again began an upheaval and noise, clearly in rejection to the blue-haired woman's presence. Tsunade listened with a half ear to what the villagers were saying before she raised her hand to clam them down. As soon as they pacified, she sighed softly. Look, I am sure all of you are upset about this new occurrence, but let me assure you, there is a perfect explanation for all of this. The villagers remained observant on the speaker. Naruto was looking over Konan and helping her stand on her feet. Yes, Tsunade continued, she was a member of Akatsuki, but she has been captured. Now you are probably also wondering why she is wearing normal leaf attire. A few people nodded as a sign of agreement. Well, the council and I have decided that, since she partook in the annihilation of the village, she should wear what many of our fellow ninja have worn to remind her of the past and her misdeeds that followed to the leaf's destruction. With that said, she will stay here and forever live her life in the shadow of the leaf, helping rebuild the village, and whatever else we ask of her as penance for that sad day that fell upon our land. The Hokage looked over to the newly assigned leaf nin, who looked away as a sign of guilt crossed her features. She could see the sadness without having to really look too hard. All of the villagers seemed to take the goddamn statement at face value, because a lot of them smiled viciously at the price the woman had to pay. That is why, from this moment forward, no one is to harm or maim this person, because she will prove herself to be of worth, understand? She concluded with that, and watched as the villagers grumbled and removed themselves from the area to continue what they were doing previously. There were a few villagers who still glared at the blue-haired ninja with distaste before they walked away as well, leaving only Tsunade, Konan, and Naruto alone. The female Sennin then took sight of the other two standing there. She went to say something, but felt slightly dizzy, so she closed her eyes and heaved a sigh. Thanks, Granny, Naruto sighed as he gazed down at his feet. I know Naruto, she replied to him with a slight smile. Just be glad I was thinking about you, she stated before opening her eyes and turning to make her leave. It was never really clear who she was talking to in that statement, but before anyone could ask, she disappeared by Shunshin. A crossed look came over the boy's features, but only for a moment as he shook it off and looked at the ex-Akatsuki. Come on, Konan, Naruto told the blue-haired ninja with a smile, let's get you cleaned up. She looked over to the boy and reflected silently, thinking about everything that had just taken place. Naruto went out of his way to protect her again. He even went so far as to hit someone else in his own village, but was it for his promise, or for something else? It seems he still has some buried feelings about his past, she thought quietly, before taking his offer and following him. A little while later they reached Naruto's home. He pulled out a key from his pocket, unlocking his door, and pushing it open to reveal the inside. It was nearly the same as last time except some odd and things were lying on the floor. They both walked into the living room and Naruto helped his guest sit on the couch that overlooked the street. He left her alone for a moment and only a moment before he walked back in the room with a couple of rags and a bowl of warm water. He also carried a bottle of some unknown brand of ninja pills that was halfway filled and a roll of bandages. He sat down beside her and began to take a look at the damage. Her hair was a little disheveled and small cuts made their way onto her face. She also had a black eye and a small amount of blood was on her lip, which seemed to have left a trail on her face but was dried over time. Why didn't you defend yourself? Naruto asked as he continued looking over her face. Well, violence is not always the answer. Also, I do believe that I would have serious repercussions if I touched anyone in your village. Killing someone on my first day is not a very good impression, is it? She replied nonchalantly, looking down. He laughed lightly at that. No, I guess not. He then went for the rag and began dipping it into the warm water. He pulled it up a few seconds later and immediately stopped. Wait a second. What in the hell am I doing? Then again, she hasn't said anything yet, so I guess it's okay. The Jinchuriki sank the rag back into the lukewarm water, wrung it out and slowly inched his hand closer to her face. He came just a hair away from making contact with skin before a hand grabbed his wrist, knocking the warm rag to the young woman's lap. I can do this on my own. I do not need your assistance. She replied sharply with a facial reaction that matched. The only reason he got as far as he did was because she wasn't paying attention to him. Oh, sorry. Haha. He replied wryly. Now he felt like an idiot. Of course, she wouldn't let him do that, I should have known. She began to wipe her face with the rag softly, closing her eyes to the sensation it gave her. Naruto didn't really know what to do anymore, so he thought quietly to himself. Actually, he was thinking about the villagers and how they reacted to her. They hated her, loathed her, wanted her dead. He couldn't help but remind himself about the way they used to act to him when he was younger. This feeling was something that he never wanted to experience again, because for the longest time, he was the villagers' beacon of hate. Even through his academy years, people hated him. He thought the only way to get attention was to act out and become a nuisance. He did bad pranks and jokes all over the village. He even marked all over the Hokage monument, but people noticed him. It didn't matter how he got noticed back then, just as long as somebody was watching him. The only reason he ever got any friends was because he got stuck on a team with people who had to deal with him. They eventually realized not to judge a book by its cover, and finally became friends with the boy. Years passed and finally everyone recognized Naruto as a person, not a demon. But now the villagers have someone new to hate. Someone to blame everything on. A new pariah, which was something Naruto had been previously. Maybe the same thing will happen to Conan? He thought in a sense of hopefulness, maybe people will see her like they see me now. He brooded silently a few more moments before a soft voice interrupted him. Naruto-san, yeah? He asked curiously. The blonde was a little disappointed that he was cut short in his thoughts, but was willing to talk. There was something I have wanted to ask you ever since I have been here. She then stopped rubbing her face and looked at him with interest. How did you know Madara was after me? It's like you knew I was in danger. Well, he started while gripping his chin and closing his eyes, as if deeply concentrating. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? She asked him irately from his stupid answer. Hold on a second. Let me explain. He then positioned himself correctly on the couch, pushing his hands on his legs. A close of his eyes signified that he was deep in thought. Well, when I was home, something happened to me. I was watching the villagers rebuild their homes from this window. He pointed to the one behind the couch they were sitting on. Everything seemed fine, and it felt like another day. Well, then I began to reminisce about the reveal of my true heritage in Nagato's death. Conan's attention was still laid upon the boy, keeping movements to a minimum, as to not disturb his thought processes. Around that time, I started to look at the flowers you gave me, and I started to feel sad. While I was doing that though, the flowers, they started wilting. But, origami cannot wilt. She rebuked, followed by a continuation of his explanation. Yeah, I know, that's what I thought too. I thought it was just a genjutsu you did to the flowers that make them seem realistic, but then, it got even weirder. Conan looked at him confused in the matter, and silently urged him to resume. Seconds later, a sigh left his mouth and he spoke. After they wilted, they caught on fire. Caught on fire? She was taken aback at the statement. The blue-haired leaf nin didn't do any of that, and felt like Naruto was just telling a lie to make it convincing, but then again, the way he spoke so calmly about it made him seem like he was telling the truth. Yeah, I don't really get it myself, but they did. I was a little worried about it, and I didn't want to think anything more. But, the Jinchuriki then lowered his eyes to the floor. Then, I started to feel this pain. It was in my chest and, I felt like I was dying. But when this feeling continued, the only person that popped into my head was you. It was like, I could feel your anguish and my thoughts were telling me you were in trouble, so I just ashed out of the village by myself and the feeling led me to you. He finalized with a smile. Conan thought for a moment. It was a lot to take in, because stuff seemed to not add up. How could Naruto know she was in danger? His Rinnegan couldn't have been activated during the time, so a small grin appeared on her face as she came to a conclusion. Nagato did that. That seemed to confuse the poor boy. Huh? What do you mean? He's not alive anymore, so how could he do anything? Well, then he must have done something while he was alive. She responded as if trying to give him a clue. What could he have done? Naruto asked abruptly. The only time he could have done anything was, how could he not have seen this before? It should have been obvious, my awakening. Exactly, Conan answered with finality. It seems Nagato has passed his locator link to you. Locator link? What do you mean? The Jinchuriki asked. She then heaved a sigh. Nagato used a jutsu on all of his 6 paths to locate them whenever he needed them. By sealing a small amount of chakra into a certain part of the body on the person they want to connect with, the person in charge can submit a small chakra frequency producing a connection with the other person. In order for it to work though, the receiver had to have an antenna to cast and receive the signal, and the person giving the signal has to have one as well. It doesn't even matter how big it is. It could be the size of a hair and still do its job. You can't control a body with an antenna that small, but you can still locate whoever you're looking for. I was the only other person to have a locating link placed on my body, which was transmitted by my lip piercing. She then points to the small hole under her bottom lip, signaling that something was once there. The person doing the jutsu leaves a hint of their own chakra into the other person, so they can always find who they are looking for. It seemed Nagato transferred his chakra locators to you, and since I was the only other person to have his chakra link, you could feel me, but only me. More or less, you unknowingly activated this link while you thought about me. Oh, Naruto replied, scratching his head. I guess that makes sense, but still, how did I receive the signal? I don't have anything on my body. I have one place in mind, Conan said as she got closer to the boy. Naruto felt a little awkward from their shortened distance away from each other as she moved closer to the boy, but sort of shrugged it off for now. Turn your head for me please, she asked softly to him, who then received a turned head from the boy. She looked around the sides of his face, then grabbed his chin and quickly turned his head to gaze at his left temple. Naruto was bemused of her actions because he didn't really know what she was doing, but felt even more creeped out when she started touching his hair, moving it around softly with her fingers. Hey, what are you, yo? Found it, Conan replied as her hand came around his face unveiling a small shard. Very clever, Nagato. What is that? Looks like a splinter, Naruto told the girl quizzically. This is a chakra rod fragment. This is what Nagato used for you to find me, as in, the little antenna I mentioned earlier. Oh, Naruto mentioned, but it's so small. Conan seemed slightly amused at his reaction to this. Well, yes. Like I said, they can be as small as a hair, but it still does what the person wants it to. Naruto liked the idea. It was very smart to think of something like this, and it got him wanting to do the same. Hey, I should get one of those. Then if anyone ever gets in trouble, I can come in and save the day. Do you mean like the time that you saved me? The blue-haired Kunoichi asked, smiling at the end of her lips. Oh, Naruto blushed about her teasing question. Oh, well, I guess. He laughed slightly as he rubbed the back of his neck. Without any prior notice, Conan wrapped her arms around him again. This time instead of sympathy, it was one that she needed and desired. Thank you, Naruto. A subtle tear began to descend its way down her face. It seemed she had more going on than he thought. She did so well to hide her emotions when they were in the hospital room that he never really noticed. That was when a melancholy mood placed itself on the house of Uzumaki Naruto. This was the third time he saw her cry, but this time Conan willingly hugged him. It was good to have a shoulder to cry on. Someone for emotional support. Of course the factor of her being older and barely knowing the boy didn't really matter at the time, because he was the only one she could do this to. He had the most tied in Nagato now, and she was in a village that hated her, so who else than the blonde nin that rescued her in the midst of her death? Naruto tried to collect his thoughts before he gently wrapped his arms around her as well. A smile overtook his lips as he began to speak happily to the woman. Don't worry. When I save this world from the never-ending pain, then you won't have to suffer anymore, because I will be Uzumaki Naruto. Hokage of Konohagakure, Naruto let go of his grip and stared at her with pure determination, pointing to his own chest with his thumb. I will make sure that everyone understands one another and peace lives across the land. It is my dream. My goal. My desire. If there is no way to peace, then I will find a way. Conan stared at the boy. She did misjudge him. Yes, his way of thinking about finding peace was childish, but somehow he keeps stepping closer to that ambition with hope. That smile, I understand now. That feeling I felt in the hospital, it was warmth. I have finally realized why Nagato trusts him. He truly is the light to this world. I have faith in you. Another smile graced her features as she wiped a stray tear from her eye, and I won't let anyone interfere. The will for peace has been passed down to you, and I promise on my life, and on my friends' graves, that I will protect that will, and allow the bridge to peace to be built with only the strongest materials. The support that holds underneath will keep that bridge standing taller than all the land, so that nothing evil can ever reach its peak. I promise, Yahiko, Nagato. In that moment, they both looked at each other in a new light that only seemed unfeasible previously. On that day, a new friendship was born between the two which could possibly exceed every other's expectation. Was it fate that these two met? Did they share something that no one else had in the known universe? They seemed to know each other, if only slightly, and were willing to go out of each other's way to make this path to peace probable. It was a mutual feeling. An understanding. Maybe the universe intended this outcome, and was correcting itself by allowing this abnormal charade to continue. This didn't seem real. It couldn't be real. But here they were, joined together by an unusual game of chance, where the hand dealt in their favor. Maybe this could work. It was only planned from the beginning anyway.
End of chapter 4.